Okay, so we're back here. So previous episode, we went ahead and did the design, so we knew where we were heading with our product here. So we were making a dual slot multi-block furnace thing for a client commission. This is what it's going to look like. This is kind of roughly what the multi-block's going to look like. We'll implement this in game, and we'll implement this in game as well. So let's go ahead and pop up the code environment. This shouldn't take too long to implement. A lot of the prefabs are pretty much already done. At least that's the hope. The reality of it is that every time I go to implement something that I say is simple, it takes longer than expected. That's development in general for you, not even mod development. Anyways, we'll make a new package here. And we want to make sure this ends up in the right folder, because we have a generation folder. The gen folder, by the way, is for the auto generator. The main folder is where we actually implement everything. So this will be furnace. And then we make a new class. We'll just call it tile furnace. Extends. And this needs an inventory implementation. What else does this do? This just saves our inventory for us, so we don't have to worry about it. Although I do need to do some testing on the inventory, so that'll come here later. I'm trying to think what type of inventory. What's the generator using right now? So we'll pop the generator up, and that will save us a little bit of time if we just reference it. So it's using external inventory. It's also externally wrapped. It also has a tank provider. We don't need the tank provider. We'll get rid of that part. This part right here is part of that auto-generating thing, so it generates a wrapper for us, so it makes a tile entity that Minecraft recognizes, although we're not using an actual tile entity. So this thing is actually an object that's not part of the actual normal game implementation. I don't know else way to explain it because my brain's a little sluggish right now. So we're going to want this part. We don't want the tank provider, of course. We're just grabbing this so that way I don't have to type everything in. Go ahead and implement all the methods at once. And it wants a little bit more methods. Okay, it wants an ID, so this is just going to be pretty much furnace. And then it wants a mod, which is going to be survival. This mod's like not really well named, to be honest. The client didn't really know what he wanted to name it, so he's like, here, just call it survival mod. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just do that. We're going to need a direction cache. We're just going to copy this directly from this so that we don't have to type it in twice. The direction cache is going to be used from metadata, so we're going to be storing a lot of this via meta. There is going to be a little bit of prep work we'll need to do. Here we go. This is what we need right down here. Real easy for that. That one, basically what it does is it looks up the metadata, it grabs it, turns it into a forge direction, stores a forge direction. This will eventually be turned into a direction object down the road. I just haven't done it. And for the inventory, we just really want new external inventory. Our inventory has 2 input, 2 fuel, and 2 output, so 6 slots is what it needs. And you have to pass in an instance of your actual object, so that way the internal inventory can do things like trigger certain events like host on inventory change, host out can remove objects, and stuff like that. That looks pretty good. We will need to implement a few other things here. We need to implement these 2 methods. The reason we're going to implement these guys is these guys are going to control what slots can take what. So we'll decide which slots are used for what things. Our first 2 slots are going to be for fuel. Or no, first 2 slots are going to be for items, and the next 2 slots are fuel. After that's output. You guys will get the point. It's pretty soon. So if we go can store, you can't store anything in the output slots. So we really want to go if slot equals 0 or slot equals 1, we will return like if stack and turn to things. So we'll go furnace recipes dot smelting dot get smelting result stack doesn't equal 1. I'm going to put a note here to switch this over to a cache. To do cache, The smelting result list is an iterator-based system. It runs really, really fast, so don't get me wrong. This is actually pretty decent code. It runs in O of N. For people who don't know what big O notation is, it means it runs essentially worst case scenario. You'll go through all elements, so that's how you can tell what your processing time is. Same thing for this guy is the next thing for the fuel. It's the same process pretty much. It also runs in about the same amount of time. We want to catch both of them in the future. That way we get a quicker result. So the point of catching is not to not do this part right here. It's to do it only once. That way your first run is slow, then the one every additional run after that runs faster. This will be tile entity furnace dot is item fuel stack. Unfortunately, they still haven't done a registry for this. When it comes to can remove, we literally only want to allow removing from slot. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and slot equals 5. And we really don't even care like what's in those slots. So what we're going to do is just return can remove, and it'll be if slots equal those. So that's pretty good. Accessible slots from... I got a comment on here. I'm gonna go stare at that real quick. Oh yeah, so somebody's interested in when the 110 version of ICBM is gonna come out. It's gonna be a while. Let me go ahead and reply to this. It's probably gonna take me a couple months to get like all of that done, because right now I have to go back to class on the 4th, meaning I literally only have a couple days left to do any kind of modding work before I get slammed with work. I do have the 112 version of Volts Engine compiling. There's a lot of work left to do. So sometime this month I will get a version of 112 out for ICBM, but any version that isn't 112 is probably going to be the next month after that. It takes so long to work on these mods to get imported. I'm trying as fast as I can. Anyways, let's move back to our furnace, since that's what you guys are here for. And some of you guys are probably watching this video like weeks or months after I've released it. So then who knows, ICBM will be released by then. Or not, or maybe, we don't know. We need GUIs. Yeah, this good stuff, good. I'm gonna like put all this stuff at the bottom. I like putting my GUIs at the bottom because they're not really that important. What do these guys extend? Container base? Yep. So we want GUI dual furnace. I'm actually gonna name these differently because if we type in certain things, it won't show it properly. And then we want this constructor. Let me go ahead and close a few of these. We're also going to need to know a few pieces of information. We're going to want to pass in the entity player. And then we're going to want to pass in tile power generator. I don't really think we actually need the player, but it's important still. We're just going to go type this in, container dual furnace. Even though we haven't made it yet, it's going to be just there. So when we do make it, it'll be fine. New Java class, container dual furnace extends container base. This has an object on it. What is this thing? Prefab. It's in the prefab GUI system, but it's like empty. I think there should be more stuff in here. I don't know what H is. Oh, H is the host. Okay. So this would be tile furnace. Ignoring my phone, which is going off, which is reminding me to wake up, but I already got up early. My brother's cat woke me up. That's the reason why we're making videos today. Because the cat was like, "Here, we're gonna wake you up and make you feed us." That's literally why the cat woke me up. Do. Yeah, okay, that works. This needs to be duplicate 2, I think. And then we'll put our slots in here. And of course this is going to import correctly, and I put power generator in there because I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to rename this real quick to tile dual furnace because I need to make sure I'm keeping track of what it is in case the client comes to me like, "Hey, I want an iron furnace." I need to make sure you're noting the difference. A small sip of my drink there. I'll actually try to get that updated out as quickly as I can for ICBM Mike. I really do want to work on it. It's just I do have to pop around and do a lot of other work here. Like I'm doing these things. There's like a couple clients I'm working for right now. This is how I pay for my college. If you guys get those Patreon donations up, then I can do this stuff more often. I'm not trying to bribe you guys, but that's how that works. So player and this. New GUI dual furnace, and then we do the same thing. So this will go ahead and handle our GUIs here. So every time they go to open a GUI, it'll make a new GUI for them to use. Anytime the GUI is also opened, it's going to store in the superclass what players have it open, and it's going to automatically handle any packets for us. So if we need to synchronize any packets, all we have to do is do extend 2 methods in here. We can read and write packets, which is going to be our Boolean that we're going to have. So private Boolean burn both slots equals false. And then this is where we're also going to need to do the update method too. Public void update long ticks. Add override. Make sure we do super here because the super method is what handles those packet updates. And then here we just pretty much got to replicate how the furnace works. So we got 2 slots we need to handle, and really we just need to know if either of the slots can function. So, and we also need the on inventory change. On inventory change is how we're actually going to handle a lot of the behavioral logic for this. And the reason why I do it this way is that we don't need to be checking if we have a furnace recipe unless something's inside of the furnace. And that's what the on inventory change is a great option for that. So this will tell us what our previous item is, what everything else is. We really only care what the current item is, and we only care what slots are. So we have our input slots, which are these guys. And let's go ahead and actually start to cache our slot IDs up at the top too. The reason for caching your slot IDs is it just makes your life so much easier. So you literally go input slot 1 equals 0. Input slot 2 equals 1. And then what you can do is you come down here and you can go, okay, I know what these are now. These are my input slot 1, input slot 2. And you don't get as confused. And it's really, really important. Like, that is something like absolutely amazing to do. And if you are programming, even if you're new, just get in a habit of doing this as early as possible. Because as you get in the more professional world of programming, this is actually a requirement that you have not a single magic number, is what these are called. So you would even do things like up here, go public, static, final int, inventory size equals 6. And they can also find all your data at the top. Like if they want to know like how big your inventories are at, how many slots you have, everything like that, you can do that. Let me get rid of that real quick. And let's go ahead and do the other ones too. I'll put these all next to each other. So these will be fuel slot 1, fuel slot 2. And this will be output slots. I might make some helpers for this stuff later too. Not like this part of it, but for this part of it, where you go, okay, get input slots, get output slots, and then you just have a method somewhere that would just be like, here's your input slots and stuff. We'll work on that eventually. So these guys are our field slots. You guys can hit tab to complete this, enter to complete it if you didn't finish typing it. Had somebody actually teach that to me on one of my YouTube videos. He's like, here, you can do this easier. I actually am pretty happy about this. I've slowly gotten the habit about using it. There we go, those are labeled. So we want to know when our inventory changes. So we want to go, okay, private boolean check recipes is what we're going to call this. And we're going to init it to true to start with, so that way we go, okay, if is server, I want to do all your logic server side. And we go, okay, check recipes, then we're going to check recipes. We'll make another boolean, private boolean has recipe equals false. And then, we're going to need to know if we have room in the output slot. Hold on, how does the normal furnace behave? Let's go ahead and launch this while we're thinking. So if these two are such and such, we're going to go, okay, check recipe equals true. And the reason why we're not going to check the recipe in here as well is this could get called hundreds of times in a single tick. I've seen it happen. There are mod developers that do not know any better about how to handle inventories, and they'll init your inventory a little too often. Let's reduce the music volume here. It may not be loud for you guys, but my headset is like, it says it's loud. Actually, you know what I could do? Leave that up there, and then I'll turn it down over here. There we go. So I turned it down on my own headset rather than penalizing you guys for the fact that my ears work. So we want to check recipes here, and has recipe equals false. And we just need to check both slots, really. Wow, this is actually remarkably easy. If get inventory dot get stack in slot input slot 1. I'm trying to decide if the furnace recipe system actually does a null check. No, it does not. Okay, so we're gonna need to make sure we do a null check. And we're going to go for int equals 0 to save ourselves a little bit of effort. So 0, 1, and then that should stop at 2. Actually do less than equal to 1. I plus plus. And this way we can simplify the logic. Item stack input equals get inventory get stack in slot I. And then if input doesn't equal null, and such, and get something result does not equal null, has recipe equals true, and then we break out of the loop since we don't need to run it twice. So that means we know we have at least one recipe. I'm trying to decide if we want separate burn timers for both slots, or if we just want one burn timer. I really just want to be lazy and run one burn timer. But I think the client specifically wants 2 burn timers. And we're just going to make simple methods for this. Int burn timer 1, private int burn timer 2. So this is where, if we know we have a recipe, we're going to actually have to be running our burn timers. So if has recipe, and oh shoot, we really need to know if we have a recipe per slot. So I didn't save myself any time. Has recipe for slot 1, has recipe for slot 2. And we'll just do a combination between those two to say we have a recipe at all. As recipe slot 1. As recipe slot 2. And we'll change this real quick. It's not too difficult to repeat these guys. As recipe slot 1, then we just do input slot 1. Is essentially we're running 2 furnaces at the same time. I actually have a system I could have done this with. What we could have done is made 2 nodes that were both furnaces, made them sub-objects of this guy, but we're already too far in for me to go and change it. Plus, I think I have to invent some code for that, which I don't want to do today. We just want to get this done. Simplify the logic even more. For those who are paying attention to this, I am early optimizing. Do not do this if you're not experienced. I actually usually just don't even do that, period. But yeah, that'll work. So that's checking slot 1, so check slot 1. Check slot 2. Consume fuel. And this is the next part we're going to do. So now we need to check to see if the burn timer... If burn timer... less than equals 0, and we have fuel. It means we need cook timers too. We're only going to have 1 cook timer, aren't we? Yeah, we're only going to do 1 cook timer. And then we'll go down here as it goes, if I don't know, does the normal furnace reset? Okay, we gotta really sit here and like look at the normal furnace. It's been that long since I've used a vanilla furnace. Like, every modded furnace behaves slightly different. Like, you get the Ender IO one will consume the items immediately before it runs the recipe. You get other ones that do not. Like, they take the vanilla path where it does not consume the item right away. We're definitely going to follow the vanilla one. Ender IO's one is, even though realistic, is unusual. It prevents you from reverting mistakes. Yeah, I was in here testing these. By the way, both of these machines now work properly. The GUIs were a little screwballed on them. This guy just flat out wasn't sending packets properly, and then this guy just... what auto-crafting got stuck on? They've been fixed. So we want a vanilla furnace. Now let's take a look at this guy and make sure we're matching 1-1. Okay, so slots look good. Now we want some material to burn, something to cook, and we're just going to watch it. So as soon as I stick the item in, it starts the burn timer, and it runs. And I want to see what happens. Okay, so the burn timer is still running. So I have to make sure the burn timer always ticks down even when there's not a recipe. And then I want to see what happens if we get partially through a recipe and we run out of fuel. Because I can't remember if the arrow stops and waits for you to add more fuel, or if it just resets to 0. I think in one of the furnaces I made, I reset it to 0 because that's how I kind of like it to work. But of course, if we're making something that's meant to be played with vanilla machines, you kind of want to make it match the vanilla stuff. So we'll sit here and watch that for a second. Won't take long. A little bit boring to stare at, but it happens. Okay, there's another pass. Almost there. Somebody should add an overlay that if you hover over this, it should show you how much time is actually on here. Okay, so I think it just stopped and just turned off completely. So I've put another one in there. It does look like it may have jumped forward and continued. It is really hard to tell. I'm going to say that it just keeps it. We can go check the code in a second. Anyways, burn time. Actually, we need to put this down here. Grab this guy, put that there. Fuel slot 1. If is fuel. Actually, I don't even know. I don't even really need to check if it's fuel. There's like another method for this, I believe. When we're in here, we might as well go check to see how it runs its update loop. Furnace burn time, run burn time, contains item. This is the method I want. Cook time plus, cook time resets to 0. So if it's not burning, yeah, so it resets cook time. So we're gonna match it, then you just reset to 0. So this is the method I want to get the burn time. So we would go, okay, if fuel does not equal null, because it could equal null, int burn time equals tile entity furnace. Get item burn time fuel, and of course this runs through like the game registry stuff, but it also does all the other things first. So that will give us full internal support for burnable items, and then we just need to go if burn time is greater than 0. If it's not greater than 0, you definitely don't consume the item. But if it is, then you go get inventory decrease stack size fuel slot 1, and you just increase it by 1. And then burn timer 1 plus equals burn time. And we pretty much just repeat this down here again. It's what I'm saying. This is pretty easy. You can make as many slots as you want, although what I recommend, if you start getting really high in the slot count, start actually considering the possibility of wanting to use 4 loops in here instead of this and a few other things. There's probably a lot of things to take into consideration if you want to do things. So it has recipe for slot 2, has recipe for slot 2, yeah, etc., etc. So we got 2 burn times now, and then our cook time is pretty much going to go if has recipe for slot 1 or has recipe for slot 2, and well, actually, hold on. We can do that. We can leave that or statement there. Burn timer 1 greater than 0. We could make methods for this, like we can go is smelting, is cooking, but I'm just going to do it the old school way where I'm just doing checks here. So this is our run loops. This is actually our cook time. And this is pretty much going to be cook timer plus. If cook timer, and what is our furnace burn time? It's like 200, I believe. Get 200. We're going to catch this. What's at the top? Public static final int cook time. Then we smelt items. Now we are going to make a method for this because the code's getting pretty complicated now. This would be protected void do smelt. I'm going to call do operation because I can't spell today. Do operation and cook timer equals 0. Let's just take a look at the furnace and make sure we're matching everything. Okay, we want to make sure we have the else statement there. So I don't know why I even copied that because I'm going to have to type in cook time no matter what. Let's change this to cook time instead of cook timer. And just mark dirty is already handled for us, so we don't have to worry about that. And we could update block states and stuff, so we're going to synchronize all this stuff to the client anyways, so and we're going to do this. If ticks present 3 equals 0. Human response time is about roughly 3 ticks. It's a little bit less, but it's close enough. And then you just do something like send descriptor packet. So then we just update the client. So update. Maybe we just want to send this always. I'm just going to send it always because of the fact that I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem. Send update packet to do change if packet bandwidth is a problem. So I doubt it's going to be an issue because we're only going to be sending like 1 packet per machine every 3 ticks. So it's not a lot of bandwidth, not a lot of issues. Preferably what we want to do is we'd only want to send this packet in here, so only while it's running, and then we want to send it one more time if the machine turns off. So yeah, there's not a lot you would have to do with this. Of course, we also need a description packet, so get script packet. So go ahead and do that guy. Cool thing about this is we can use the methods for these. And we don't really need the player-driven ones, so we're just going to copy these. Of course, I'm going to delete the one between it. The description packet is pretty much going to do all of our network code for us, so we don't have to really do much. We just have to tell it what we're going to read and what we're going to write. Normally what you would have to do is you'd have to write your own packets if you were doing this on your own. I have prefabs built up. I grabbed the wrong one, so I need to change this to like read the script packet. And this needs to be a public variable because I believe this is read externally. I don't think it is, thinking about it, but in our packet data here, we would just go buff dot write data, pretty much. We're going to want to sync the cook time. And yeah, we're just going to sync the cook time. The reason why we're only syncing the cook time is we're going to use the cook time as an indicator that the furnace is actually doing things. So if the cook time is greater than 0, the furnace is on. If the cook time is less than 0, the furnace is off. Actually, you know what? We're going to sync a little bit of everything. So we're also going to sync the burn times as well. And the reason I'm going to sync the burn timers is I'm actually going to do the graphics so there's 2 burners. And then we're also the cook time. I don't know if we'll use the cook time locally, but we'll go ahead and synchronize it anyways. I mean, if we don't need it, we don't need it. But we might as well synchronize it anyways. And if it turns out we don't need it later, all we have to do is like come over here, comment out these 2 lines. With packets, by the way, you want to make sure that you actually are reading and writing in the same order. Because if you just say comment out this one, all of a sudden this variable just read is your cook time. Because these are linearly read. There's not like some special magic to make sure they read right properly. So that's good. And then we want to do our operation in here. Our operation is going to be pretty straightforward. Every time the cook time cycles over, each slot we run, we're going to do stuff. And we want to just take these 2 guys, drag them down here. Instead of actually checking if we have a recipe, we're going to go if this. Yeah, that'll work. I'll go ahead and write the first one first. So we know we have, actually we want to make sure we're storing our smelt results, so let's grab and remove that guy. So item stack result equals that. And for the moment, we're going to make sure just we can export to our output slots. We're going to get output equals get inventory dot get stacking slot output slot 1. We're going to go, okay, if output equals null, or, and then I've got an inventory utility helper for this, but basically what this comes down to is it just matches the 2 stacks. We're going to make sure if the 2 stacks match, and there's a method for this. I think it's called room left in slot. Yeah, there we go. So this and this would be output slot. It's greater than 0. So if we want to make sure there's actually room left in the slots, and we want to make sure that we can stick something in the slot. And this wants something. Here we go. So, actually, we want to separate these two. The reason we want to separate these two is it just makes life a little easier. Not by a huge amount. If the output slot is null, literally what we do is we go get inventory, .set inventory slot content, output slot, result. And then we just decrease our input slot. So we go get inventory, decrease input slot, we pass in input slot 1, and we decrease it by 1. And we do the same thing down here, except we want to increase our output. So you want to make sure that, actually this needs to be greater than equal to result dot stack size. If you don't have enough space to put the stack in the slot, you don't put the stack in the slot. Because if you give a partial fill, you just wasted the player's items. So this would be output.stackSize plus equals result.stackSize. Then what you want to do is you want to reset the slot. You always want to call slot set again, except instead of putting result in here, you're putting output. And you want to make sure you reset it, because sometimes just changing this doesn't work. So if you change this guy, this should actually change the inventory, but it doesn't always happen in that case. You could have some weird behavior, so you always want to make sure you set the slot again. And that's pretty much it. That gets your output slots inputted. So we're only going to copy to one slot the other, and then what we'll do is we'll leave a notation here to do try other slot. So we'll have a system up here later where we can put more stuff in there. Then we'll go ahead and copy this whole thing again, and we'll put it down here, and we just need to make sure we remove that. And then we come down and highlight this, replace input slot 1. Actually, I think I could just do _1 and replace it with _2. And that will quickly edit all of our stuff. That makes sure that we're only working with the second slot set. Yeah, that should in theory work. So our inventory is fully set up now. Well, at least the code to run the inventory setup. So we can do the recipe. We check that we have recipes. So check recipe, has recipes, has recipes. Anytime our inventory changes, we recheck the recipe, which is probably just going to be often, because this, unfortunately, every time your GUI opens up, re-kicks itself. And then now we just need to program the containers. So let's go ahead and close everything but this. Pop these two guys open. I am going to open this guy up because it just saves so much time if you can come over here and just copy and paste stuff over. I don't recommend people learn by copying and pasting, but the reality of it is by far faster to just copy and paste some of the code. Like, it's cool to understand how some of this stuff works, and you definitely should make sure you understand a lot of it. Like, for example, I about put the wrong thing here. But these are, our output slots are going to be these guys. Let's do node. The reason why we're doing node.get inventory is this thing here doesn't really have proper inventory code. I guess you could. No, you can't. So this doesn't have proper inventory code. What it does is in the super is it pulls the inventory off the super. So it checks if it's an inventory, checks if it's a provider. If it's a provider, it grabs the inventory. If it's an iTile node, and then get it node is an inventory, it'll try to grab the inventory off that. That way your inventory is coming from the correct spot and not from something weird going on. That's container base. So we'll need input slots. We'll need 2 of these guys. And we gotta make sure that all our IDs. This is where also having your ID set up is kind of important. And we need to make sure these are just regular slots. What we could do with these guys, we can set these guys up to these certain types of slots. I think there actually is a way to do this. We'll do that. We'll worry about that later. That'll be some like bonus episode where I go through and I polish up the code. Of course, I'm going to have to move these slots too. which we'll do in game. That's what we'll probably end up doing, just to make our lives a little easier. I'm gonna do plus 18 on these guys, and then these ones I'm just gonna fudge some kind of number from, so that way they're not on top of each other and I can see them. These are output slots, which means you can't edit them. They basically just exist. And then of course this is going to be another plus, this will actually be plus like 30. Like the output slots are sizable. And that's our container pretty much. Because the only thing else you do with the container is you just set up something like this, where you can, when you hit shift click, it transfers to the proper slots. Yeah, that looks good. We'll do the transfer later. I hate doing the shift click. You'll notice a lot of my machines don't have it for that reason. Well, not so much. It's finicky to work on. Now we're going to pop into here because I need to find a very specific method. I need this piece right here. That pretty much saves me a ton of time. Normally, if you were doing vanilla GUIs and you didn't have any helpers or anything, you would have to go and put all of these on your GUI, so that way you manually do all that stuff. Because I've got helpers for this, it draws all my slots for me. And I feel like doing a handler for this, because we have these output slots. And I kind of want to make sure they draw a certain way. I'm just going to go ahead and launch it though. Oh, we forgot one important step. We would have launched and we wouldn't have had anything in game to play with. We've got to actually make a JSON file to tell it to load. So I'm just going to grab the generator real quick. And we'll do the, because this video is already pretty long, we'll do the render another day. So grab this guy up. Let's get rid of his crafting grid. And we're going to get rid of the multi-block. We'll do the multi-block later as well. It'll error out in chat saying the multi-block is missing, but we'll get to that. We'll leave the render bounds alone. And then we just need to set up the multi-block here real quick as well. Material.rock. Render type is tile entity. The tile entity's name. So we'll just need to make sure we actually get the package here. And I forgot to check what we named the tile. Probably forgot to name it. Yep, forgot to name it. This is actually the file name that I'm going to be generating. This is what it's referenced in here. I'm actually planning on doing some kind of like reference key system to replace this, because having to type out the full class path name is not how I want to do this. Yeah, this all looks good though. So this will work. I probably want to put a render here. I think it's defaults to 0 is what this defaults to, and we'll go ahead and do that. That way it actually tries to render properly. That way we can see it in game, and we'll go from there. We'll have to do the output slots, make them draw. But this should be enough that we can at least test it and make sure that it functions, and we'll get to it eventually. just as a note, is that's what we're going to make the GUI look like. So we'll do that. We'll get the GUI set up. We'll have to do a few things here. Where's the power generator GUI again? Okay, inventory, draw tooltips is drawn on the foreground layer. We're doing background layer. So we actually still have the background layer open, or we have a method for it already. So we can go ahead and handle that in a second. And we're going to want to do... Well, we're probably going to have to figure out how we're going to render this precisely. I have helpers for this, I think. I don't know. Actually, hold on. We have a campfire here already. So I can just go copy the campfire's code. Because this has already got the fire in it, and this has already got the arrow render in it as well. So that'll save us a bit of time and effort. I wonder if this guy does the output slot render as well, because I think I may have just left the output slots as a normal size output slot and just said screw it and didn't bother with it. But I think I'm going to come back through here and I'm going to actually fix that here later. It won't take me long. It'll just be something where I have to put an if case that goes, if that is equal output slot, draw a larger slot icon. I may even make my own version of the output slot and then put a boolean on it if I want to make it render larger. And we had a bug. Exception, why parsing? Oh, oops. Forgot to run the code generator. Yeah, so there we go. That should have made our dual furnace right here. This is what this looks like, by the way. All it does is makes our inventory code for us and our multi-block code. And then we want to then hit debug and then Bojujo. Get that launched up. How we're actually going to end up doing the multi-block and rendering here. The render is going to be an ISBR for those who only mod with the newer versions of Minecraft. I don't know what that system it turned into. I think it turned into like a JSON block system. But it's just a fancy way of making models in-game in Minecraft without using model files. You can use model files with ISBRs, but you can also just go, okay, I want a cube rendered at this size with this texture. And that's what we're pretty much going to do. We're going to take and probably use cobblestone for this. And we're just going to build the whole thing out of cobblestone with a little bit of decoration. I'm not going to use any textures for it because I don't have a model or a texture to work for me. So we're just going to make this by hand. Our other option is what we could do. Let's see if I can get my desktop here. Is we can use magic voxel. Because we can build the entire furnace up in here. And it would look half decent. I would then have to texture it though, and I have not yet learned how to properly texture map a model. It's something that I probably should learn at this rate. After all, I'm making my own game, and I have one modeler on staff right now. That would be Grogger. He's still learning how to model himself, so calling him a modeler is probably incorrect. He's more of a designer. So yeah, I probably should pick up some of that slack. We'll get to that though, one step at a time. For the moment, what we're going to do is focus on just getting this to render and work and do its thing. And then we'll build up the model probably tomorrow. Or whenever it happens. There'll be another episode. But this will be the last episode for today before the stream, because as soon as we hit 1 o'clock, we're going to do the stream. And I, of course, want to go eat lunch before I do a stream, so... I've made the mistake multiple times of not eating before streaming, and I end up streaming for like 6 hours, and then by the end I'm like completely out of energy. And my buddy gets all upset at me because he's like, "Oh man, you're not playing games with us or anything." He's like, "Yeah, I'm tired, dude." Speaking of streaming and stuff, we've been streaming Factorio recently. For those who want to come jump over to the stream channel and actually watch it, that would be Twitch TV/DarkGuardsman. You guys can come over here, watch me stream. I'm doing almost all of my stuff on this Twitch channel. We're also doing Mech Warrior as well. Occasionally we do 7 days. I would announce what games we're going to play ahead of time, but really we pick the game on the day we play it. That's how it works. This is how it's always going to work. I'm not sure we're going to change that. I mean, if you guys really want to play a certain game, you just got to kind of tell us. We're really open to playing a lot of stuff. as long as we own it and it doesn't take like 5 hours to download. That's usually the rule of thumb of how it works is we have to own the game. It has to not take forever to download. It has to be less than 20 gigabytes. Although that last one's not as big of an issue because we did get Grogger a new hard drive, so he can store more games and stuff, but he still doesn't like downloading it because he's got crap potato internet. Anyways, go ahead and clear my inventory. We are going to test this thing. By default, any block that's made with a node system and uses the JSON render system will render like this. And something's broken. Unusual this is. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Other than the fact like something broke all the biome IDs, which is probably me. Why is this failing to place though? Is it even real? It's real, just won't place. I'm kind of confused. Cannot build multi-block at location. That's probably why it won't place. So it looks like it's going to force us to build a multi-block. So I'll fix that in a second. It's a 2-block multi-block, so it really isn't that hard to do. So one, we want to get rid of do rotation. Then we're going to pop the generator open real quick, and I'm going to go copy its multi-block template. I only need the top half. Just remember the formatting, sometimes it takes a little bit of effort, and I forget half the time. And we don't need the rotation on this guy, because this guy doesn't rotate. We just need to make sure the layout key matches the name. So that would be our key, that's what it looks for, because this gets loaded up in a separate system. There's a multi-block system. And what you can do with the multi-block system is you could have created a whole bunch of keys like 2-block tall and stuff, and that way you didn't have to waste a whole bunch of time. And really the multi-block is 1 line in size. This is in the wrong folder. That's why it's itching at me. And our multi-block is going to be 1 block above us. Pretty simplistic. That's literally how easy it is. At least that's if you're using Voltage. If you're not using Voltage, it really isn't too difficult to do a single multi-block system. It's when you start getting like into like the dozen or so blocks and the machine starts to get really sizable is when it starts becoming more complicated. Especially if you're not doing uniform shapes, if you're not doing a cube or a rectangle, and you're starting to do things like circles and stuff, you have to get a little bit more elaborate about how you do it. Not just for generating the structure, but you got to keep track of the structure. And you don't want to be checking per tick that the structure still exists. You want to have the structure tell you when it's broken, tell you when it unloads. So you want to do like multi-blocks and stuff. You don't have to, there are like thousands of ways to do multi-blocks. Just don't do what Reika does, that's all you have to do. Give him more shit than he really needs. But he's got a few multi-block systems that don't handle as well as they should. They're not bad though, so they're not absolutely horrible. This is going to crash because it's missing a line there. Not sure what happened there that it didn't do that, but something got screwball. Run that again. Surprised it even loaded then if that was messed up. It's probably the JSON system doesn't even give a shits about this comma separation list. It's probably like as long as it has bracket separation, it's a different unit. I could be wrong on that. It could have just been that it was introduced during the last second. I just wasn't paying attention. But yeah, so we got a rotation system, so that'll automatically rotate our tile to face us. And then this is our other thing. The listeners, for those who have never really followed what's going on, are a system where the block will fire an event, and it will fire those events to a listener set. And these listeners are created and added to the block on runtime. So it'll create a rotation listener, and it'll create a multi-block listener. The reason why the formats look different is the rotation listener doesn't have any data, but the multi-block one does. Its data is the furnace key. And its ID is the... Well, you get the point. Anyways, this should load in a second. I'm going to work on trying to improve the load time here. I think the only thing I need to do to get the load time up is just remove Tinkers and IC2, and the load time should be pretty quick. Because if I do something like, if I'm working on wooden buckets or something, or just working on Voltage by itself, which I have done here, the load time is almost instantaneous. And if I'm running a non-workspace client, so if I'm running like a multi-MC, it instantaneously loads. That tells me that it's really just IntelliJ that's slowing this down more than anything. Eclipse probably has the same problem, NetBeam probably has the same problem. It's just you're running in a dev environment, you don't get speed. You lose that luxury. I need more upbeat music. Let's see what selection we have while we're waiting. Using the pretzel thing. Free music. I love it. I don't get flagged on YouTube. But there's supposed to be like some really... Oh, they got a rock section now. Let's see what we got here. It sounds like rock. It's got that same drum stuff, but yeah, it's rock. I'm just not used to a lot of these music, because a lot of the music they have on here is not very popular music, or it's music that was made specifically for a game. Because trying to get free music is hard, because anybody who makes really good music, they make money from their music. What I should do is, I know a couple people here in Ohio that have their own bands that do dubs and everything else. And they do a lot of their own music too. I should probably go fetch some of their music and ask them if I can run it in the streams for free. And they probably would say yes, because they probably want as much advertisement as they probably can. And even if I have to pay them a little bit, I don't really mind. Just having something that sounds decent would be nice. Ah, it's Multiblock. All of our slots are crammed in here, though. So in order to fix slots, you can fix these in real time. You just have to mess with this stuff, so... these aren't actually horribly placed. I'm assuming these are our bottom slots here. So the X value on these guys really needs to change. And we're going to start storing X values. There's a beauty about doing your X values this way, is that you can change your whole GUI really fast. Except down here, what we're going to do is we're going to go, okay, X equals like 100. We're just going to move these guys. Now, in order for the container to reload, you have to reopen and close it again. The reason for this is that this is only run once, and it's only run when the container is created. Now, you can make helper methods so you can reload this as many times as you want and reload the slots. I don't recommend it because you're going to screwball your system. Anyways, drag this over here. Do this. So we want to see... The proportions don't look right here. I may have accidentally scaled the slots down here incorrectly. Because if you sit here and look at this, this does not look like this. And the likelihood is that we're using one of the machine GUIs as well, which means we have a lot more space to play with. We'll have to sit here and look at this. Let's see. A small drink there so I don't start coughing in the mic. Throat's a bit scratchy. Well, I didn't cough into the mic, but I still ended up coughing, unfortunately. So let's see. We want to move... Yeah, we just want to space these guys a little better. So instead of like 18, we'll do like 24. And we'll make sure these guys are spaced 24 as well so they match. We want the X's to match on these guys. Now we want to change the Y on these. I want to say we want to go down like 30 from the other guys, so this will be like 40. No, it's not. Oh. We're already down so many. So we're down one slot from the top, basically, almost one slot. And then we moved 20, so we moved a little more than one slot down. We need to move like another 20. Hit reload. Not too bad. That's decent spacing right there. We can put both of our fires between that. And this is where I'm kind of sitting here staring at this like, we could just put these slots above each other. And then have an arrow go to each slot. But we only have one cook timer. So I think I'm going to keep it at one cook timer. Anyways, this needs to be a lot less. I'm going to say this needs to be like 38. I'm not going to change the X spacing on these two guys because I'm going to need to change the renders on them. What is with this? Item filtering warning. It's an NEI bug. Why does he even care? Whatever, it's not important. That's good. So now we just want to render some of the GUI elements. So we're going to pop over here. Wait, we don't want that guy. We want campfire. We want to render field timer, and we want to render the crafting arrow, and we need to make sure we bind the GUI. This is the GUI that's going to have all of our stuff in it. And if we don't bind that, it won't render properly. We're going to render our slots first. And it doesn't really matter if we actually render our slots first. I think I forgot to catch our host. Yep. Okay. We're gonna have to restart because I forgot to catch this guy. There's a way I can retrieve him from the list, but I want to catch him. And I need to rename you. Furnace. We'll go ahead and just code this up real quick, and then we'll move everything. And I guess I probably should... why we need to make these public variables. Probably should use getter methods for these, but I'm lazy. There's no point in going out of your way to do a whole bunch of stuff. Now, of course, we're going to have 2 fires rendering. So we're going to have to make 1 per fire. So burn timer 1. And then we're going to make a helper method. So protected void render fire. Furnace cook fire. Make sure I name that, because what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the super here eventually. So what we want is we want int burn time, int max burn time, and this wants a few things. So that's our actual fire piece right there. So this is going to be burn time, max burn time. We forgot to store how long we're going to actually have the items burn for. And then we need to do int x, int y. And that saves us a lot of time, because then we just come over here and we just go render from a slot x, y. We'll do the same thing for the arrow here. We just also need to get burn time too. So furnace burn time 1. And we need to pop over here, and we also need to make 2 more methods because we forgot about this. Or rather, I forgot about this. I don't know why I keep saying the word we. Burn time item is what we're going to call this. Because in order to get a good render out of that slot, you need to remember what item you were burning. So burn time item 1. So we'll go ahead and just store that when we calculate it. burn time item 2. There we go. And we could just put the second one right below it, and we just go, okay, I want you to be shifted over by what we said, like 24. There we go, and let's go ahead and abstract this guy too. So protected, void, render, furnace, cook, arrow. Int X, int Y. And this one we're going to do the same thing, so we'll have int cook time, int max cook time. And I don't know why I'm referencing that directly. So this will be max cook timer, cook time, and these will be like static methods, I think. No, we can't make them static methods, but we need to make sure we're not referencing internal code. And we'll go ahead and copy these guys, and I'm going to go ahead and just throw them up in here. Now I have tons of helper methods in here. You'll find it if you ever go through this code. There's a lot of them in here. So what we want to do is make sure we put this at the bottom, and we want to make sure we document it, because a lot of the helpers are not documented because they're old. Like this guy here dates to like 1.25 Minecraft. That's how old this gauge is, and of course it's based on Buildcraft. I didn't write this. CalClavia did. CalClavia also wrote the tooltip code, and I kind of wrote some of this. It's hard to tell who wrote what because one person will write something and another person will come in and change it, and at this point in time, I mean, I'm the maintainer of all of it, so confusing. I'm just going to copy and paste this down here, and what we'll do is just change like the value names, because these two methods are really similar to each other, just one renders a different way the other. Eventually what I want to do with all these helpers is I want to get them all out of this class, and I want to make an object system where you add a component to a GUI, and then the component would be a cook timer, and it would render on its own, and you wouldn't have to deal with it. That's the plan in the future. But right now, I'm going to put them in the super here because that's the best way to handle a lot of this. And this would be render furnace arrow, x.y, furnace.cooktime, and furnace.max. This would be tile dual furnace .cooktime. And let's change this, just so it's a little easier to understand. That's it right there. That's how simple this code really is. We'll hit debug again, and we'll just run this again, and that should display and render. And the cool thing with this, if I want to make more helpers, I want to change the style. Like if I want to come through here and make an electric furnace for the client later, I just have to make another helper for this, and I can then reuse that. Plan to actually reuse a lot of this. That's the reason why I make a lot of helpers. I also plan to do a lot of cool things with this too. So while we're waiting for this, I can go ahead and point a few of these parts out. So with this as well, not only did I want to transition this to like another object type of system, I do want to start rendering this via a JSON system. Because if you sit here and you stare at this, we're rendering a rectangle, I mean, it has an offset and stuff, but all of this could be calculated. So what I could do in a JSON file is, okay, render a rectangle with this position data, render rectangle with this position data using some kind of mathematical formula that would figure out the offset and stuff. And it would be JSON driven. So that means I can easily make more and more data, and it doesn't mean I could just make them. It means anybody could. So if you come into my GUIs, you don't like how any of it looks, like absolutely any of it looks, then you can come through and go, okay, I want to make my own fire, but I want it to render upside down. So instead of rendering fire from the bottom to the top, it renders from the top to the bottom. Or you can make it render sideways or diagonal or however you want to render it. And if it's via a JSON system, you wouldn't have to understand how to code. You would just have to understand what the data looks like, how the data is processed. And the data, this would be what you will be given. You will be given X, Y, burn time, max burn time. That's what data would be given. And from that, you can handle everything else. Of course, container positioning and stuff will be handled automatically for you, so you won't have to deal with that. So the only thing you have to understand is, okay, where's my stuff in the texture? Because that's what this stuff is, by the way. This is a texture sheet lookup. You're telling me where on the texture you want to find it, and you're telling me how big is the item on the texture, and then you render it. And the same thing down here. How this works, by the way, is this kind of just figures out, it changes the position of the render, and it changes the location of the render, and I believe the size is even changed down here as well. And it does that, so it's moving a small texture up and down and adjusting it to render properly. Theoretically, I could offset this automatically. I don't exactly know how to handle that. I'll figure it out in the future. Like if I ever get to that JSON system, I'll make sure that it's as easy as possible. That way you guys can implement as much as you want on your own. Because the goal is to get as much as these mods to a JSON-based system as possible. That way I no longer need to give craps what Minecraft does when they update, because as long as I can implement a wrapper for it, the JSON will work. And if I can't implement a wrapper for it, then I'll pull some voodoo magic out of my hat. Using ASM, or there's so many different things I can do. Like here's something that most people don't know. I don't need to use Minecraft's GUI system to do GUIs. People have gotten to the assumption you have to do it. Nope, you don't have to. What you can do is you can start doing in-world OpenGL rendering over top of the overlay in Minecraft. Take control of the keyboard and mouse away from the player so the player can't move, and then you just go, okay, if I click a certain spot, you do a certain thing, and we just crashed. I forgot to set the furnace. I didn't even need to look at the crash report to know that. I just remembered I forgot to do it. Spent too much time talking. Okay, so you notice how we found that rock channel? I have this assumption that all of these songs are by the same person. How do I control this? No? How do we get back to this? I want to see the... I don't want to add to playlist. I think there's a way to do it. Oh well, I'll figure it out later. I just wanted to see if there's a way I could see all the songs they have. Let's go ahead and just skip forward here until we... Oh wait, we just found one that isn't by the same author. Oh, that's a little bit better rock song. A little bit more upbeat. Not much of a music person, but I at least can tell when I don't like something. I don't know what I like, but I know definitely what I don't like. It's one of those strange reversals. As you'll find people that know exactly what they like. And the singing sucks in this one. Like the music, like the actual instrumental part of this is good. Let's find another one. Like their instrumental music is right on point. So this band knows how to do their instruments. It's just, I guess I'm not accustomed to the singing parts of songs. I'm a little too used to metal. A little too used to like listening to heavy metal music where there's not as much singing as you would think. I mean, it's there, but it mixes with the music a lot better. Because when he starts singing, you can't really hear the instrumental on him. I mean, which is intentional. I mean, you want to be able to hear the singer. I don't know, it'll grow on me, I guess. I notice all this music that's made by this is all like post-apocalyptical titles. There we go. Everything's rendering. These slots should work. What? Ah. We goofed somewhere. Mistakes were made. Container, dirt furnace. Okay, that's duplicated. And what we probably failed to do, yep. I don't know if those are going to fix. Let's hope they do. Yep, okay, they fixed. Sometimes if you have a static and it's a final, it won't reset. Because Java inlines a lot of stuff. Anyways, let's reposition our GUI elements. Now the cool thing with these guys will update in real time. So I don't have to reload GUIs. Let's get them over here so we can see it. I've heard this song a few times. I think it's one plays in the normal queue quite often. It looks a little off-center, but it's hard to tell. It's fine though. This guy needs to come over like to about that point. And what we'll need to do is we need to add an AI support to this eventually as well, so that way when you click the arrow it opens up. We'll do that in a later video because I have to go do that to my own machines here, which means when I go to do my own machines I'll probably come through and do them with these ones as well. Come down a few more. Quite a few more. Let's bring it over just one more as well. That looks pretty good. Now what should be able to happen with this is we should be able to shove fuel in this thing. And then let's do two different slots here. So we'll do pork in one slot and we'll do fish in the other. Okay, we're not getting a tick on either one of these. That could just be packet syncing not doing its thing. Yeah, it's a packet sync issue. Because you see it did kick over. Okay, so we know we're kicking the packets over every 3 ticks no matter what. And we're kicking cook time, burn time. Okay, so it is kicking the packet out. So we know that. It's not reading the packet. We could be having an issue with a descriptive packet problem again. There's been because of the abstraction systems, you know, that beautiful system I've been talking about and working on. It's actually caused quite a lot of bugs in the existing code, and I mean quite a lot of bugs. It was not intentional, it was not planned for, and I was not expecting to have as many problems, but a lot of times you guys will run into bugs and you report them to me. It's the abstraction system almost every single time. It has caused a lot of problems. Anyways, this is what sports should be running. Are we not even getting a read packet at all? Or did I not hit play? Nope, it's running. So it doesn't look like we're even getting packets client side at all right now. Let me take a look at the console, make sure there's no errors. Looks like there's some complaining about the multi-block didn't structure correctly, which doesn't make sense because if we look at it, there's definitely a multi-block right there. And you can click on both of them and they open up just fine. And NEI is being an absolute annoyance right now. I'm going to turn that on real quick because I just want to have that. I'm going to disable it. And we still get the errors when it's disabled? NEI, you're making it possible for me to bug test my stuff. So we're not getting packets. I'm not sure why. Because it's definitely writing the description packet. It's going to return the description packet. It could be that it's not sending the description packet properly. So there actually may be no problem with the read at all. I did change how send description packet worked here recently. I did not test it, which is my bad. So we'll go close these down and I'm going to go find where it sends it. So we do send description packet right there. We're not using server anymore. That's puzzling. Right packet, right packet, right packet. Utility is that easy. Player MP, which will roll out any fake players. You can't send packets to a non-multiplayer player. I don't know why the server instance is there. It's I think it's there because I was trying to pull the player list, and you actually pull the player list from a different spot. There we go. We got our packet. So that was literally what caused it. There we go. And foobar. Something's wrong with our scale. Fun times, right? Probably some like that's part of the GUI. As I said, this should have been simple. We're now at an hour 30. It's probably be a 2-hour video by the time I'm done. Burn timer 1, burn timer 2, burn timer 1, burn timer 2. Because the cook timer arrow is working just fine. It's these two guys that are messing up. It's got to be the offset. Something got stuck in there, which is 1,600, which is not correct. With a max burn time of 0, so something's wrong. Oh, we're not synchronizing max burn time with the server client. Okay, that's what's wrong. I had to think about it for a second. So buff.writeInt burn timer item 1. Buff.writeInt burn timer 2. This is a better song than the last couple. It's a little bit soft-spoken, but it sounds nicer. Timer, run timer. Second one's still screwed up. So what I forgot to do was also disable per slot, so that way each slot is independent from each other. Go ahead and break that. We're going to get another one, we're going to place it back down, because the data in that one was corrupted. I loosely mean corrupted, by the way. It's not corrupted as a bad thing, just it's running with not so good data, and we just need to reset it. Okay, and we just need to make sure to test it that it's doing its thing. First slot's running by itself. What we should see is the pork is the only thing that should be consumed. We should see that decrease by 1 slot. And that's a glitch. What happened here? That's slot 1. Set inventory slot, output 1, result. Result. Input. I don't get it. The only thing I could think is that something's not running properly with this. So we'll run through this code real quick. Input. Input, copy, dot stack size equals 1. So really just like, it doesn't make any sense. It's literally giving me back I may have broken the furnace recipe list. That's why you never edit the furnace recipe list, is because you can very, very easily break it. Anyways, I'm gonna have to restart the game no matter what because I broke the furnace recipe list. And I'm gonna turn this guy into a helper real quick, so save myself a little bit of time. Protected. Void process slot, and it's going to want int input, int output. That's about it, actually. This will make life a little easier. And what you theoretically could also do with this as well is I could turn this into a helper inside the machine code, and this would work on anything. So we go down here, process slot, input slot 1, output slot 1. And you come down here and do the same exact thing. And this way we weren't fixing two methods. It's the reason why I switched this, is that we don't have to fix two functions inside this method. So we only have one function now. And then when we go to do the other slot, we can do the other slot here, right? So instead of actually, what we could do with this, instead of this being a single thing, we could actually run this as multiple slots, and then we could iterate through all the slots, which is how we would actually implement it. And we'll put that right there. To do change output slot to an array of output slots. Because then what you do is you go, you figure out what your result is, and you would get the output. So output, get result. If result doesn't equal null, we forgot to check that. That's a null pointer waiting to happen. Copy input and change size to prevent issues. But it was literally us modifying the result that caused that problem, because instead of copying the result, we were putting it directly into the output slot, and if we change the output slot size at any given point in time, we screwed it up. At least that's my theory, because that's the only thing I could think of that just happened. Let's go ahead and run this again, and it should work, in theory. There we go. And we could return booleans on these too if they succeed or fail and stuff, but we're not going to do that. Also, when it comes down to like the result thing, we could actually have changed this to another method to make it even more reusable. So if we ever did take this to machine class, or to the machine node, which is what we're extending, we would actually take this and then we would separate this out to get result for recipe, and then would pass in input and the stuff. And that way you could change this from furnace recipe to grinding to crushing to whatever. It would function. It would actually run really, really well. Actually, to save ourselves some time, we could have went to the Basic Industries mod and copied all this code out, but I think it's kind of nice to do this from scratch. It's a good learning process. And who knows, maybe it's more efficient than the other version. I doubt it though, because the other version uses a cached recipe list, which is like a hash map item wrapper thing. Eventually I'm going to make one of these for like all kinds of stuff. It'd be nice to even have one for recipes, and I'm probably going to do the recipe creation wizard in-game, because I think I've been told Inventory Tweakers has one. I've never seen its version, but I'm told it runs really well. And I think I'm going to do something similar to Voltagen. I'm not quite sure how we're going to make it run though. Because I want to build it in a Volts engine, but I also don't want everybody to get access to it. So I want to make sure that like there's something you have to do to your client to make it show up. And what it'll be is I'll probably have it so it's a button inside of the GUI for each crafting table, and then it'll open up and be like, here you can craft things. Or here you can make recipes. Or maybe not. I think I'll do what I do normally, which is control grave key, which opens up the access system, which I've already said before I'm going to change so it doesn't just open up the access system, it opens up a general menu, and then you can open up the access system from that general menu. I'll design something later, and we'll do another video where I talk about the theory, then the design, and then the actual implementation. Although this set's going to have a couple implementation videos, because then we're going to do the rendering, and yeah, that's actually, no, I think the rendering is the last thing we got to do. Not going to do that today, because I don't know. Maybe if I can't sleep during the night, we'll do it. That's working out rather well now. Hey, only one item this time. So yeah, I broke the furnace recipe. So like, if you guys are ever making your own machines, just remember never edit the result given back to you from the recipe system. Always clone it. Because some recipe systems do not do that for you. Mine, I think, do. I'm not quite sure. I'll probably document it. If it does, I'll probably say in the documentation method makes a clone of the item for you so that way you don't have to. Yeah, this works out really well. So we'll go ahead and take a screenshot of this, and I'll go dump this to the client here later. And all we have to do is just make these slots bigger, although it doesn't really look that bad the way it is. And then I'll probably ask him if he wants more than one slot over here as well, so you can store repeated items, and then we'll just do the render for it when we get to the next episode.